And now, Committee at the Movie.
Hi, and thanks so much for sticking with the committee program. We know you have many options for content to consume, and we appreciate you being here today. And of course, thanks to Cadre Cigarettes, our sponsor. That fine blend of Carolina and Turkish tobacco, which creates something uniquely Fredonian. That smooth, bold flavor and sophisticated aroma that surrounds the cities from the countryside. That's Cadre Cigarettes, sponsors of the committee program. Now let's go to the movies with committee, in this case to discuss Squid Game.
Here is the first game. You will be playing red light, green light. You are allowed to move forward when it shouts out green light. Stop when it shouts red light. If your movement is detected afterwards, you will be eliminated.
Red light, green light.
And look, even before we get started, and as always, I would like to thank the editors of the International Magazine for this opportunity. This is where I originally was able to put this article, and it has been my arena for proper film critique, especially at this time of year when other publications would employ critics to produce best-of lists and other sentimental claptrap. We are laser-focused on doing the real work, because we are made of sterner stuff, dear viewer. We have spent this whole year talking about how to critically watch things, and that means we're going to systematically look at this TV series and make a clear-eyed examination of the latest small-screen offering to capture the global public imagination in 2021, and that was, of course, the South Korean miniseries Squid Game. And when the time comes, we will be able to summarize the plot in a mere 20 words. Don't worry, it's not going to be about what happens. We're going to talk about the real stuff. And if you come from the please just let people enjoy things side of the street, fear not. There is no question that Squid Game is more than simply a satisfying diversion in tough times. It exhibits excellence. The technical aspects of the series show real chops. The acting is superb. Notably, Lee Jung-jae as protagonist Seong Gi-hoon, player 456, Jung Hae-yoon as North Korean defector Kang Se-buk, player 67, and Oh Young-soo as, no spoilers, the old man, Oh Il-nam, player 001. The production design is done with extreme care and taste. It is very, very good. There are both homages inside it and innovations. Cinephiles amongst you will note, and the rest of you can take comfort in now knowing, there's striking similarities in the staircases in the arena between the set of Squid Game and the Dr. Seuss design structures in the children's film classic, The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T.
It happens in an amazing castle with a tickle-em-to-death torture chamber and a 500-player piano with 480,000 keys.
And on the other hand, the hopperesque chic of neon-laden 7-Elevens and outer suburban Seoul are delivered in a saturated flat wide shots that harken more to the current era of smartphone cinema than to any kind of classic tradition. And also, unlike the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, Squid Game is actually a masterpiece. But what sort of masterpiece? That's what I want to get at. There's no question that it's good. But why and how is it good, and why and how does that matter? Simply put, what I think is that Squid Game is a comprehensive artistic study of violence, sort of a penciled-in notebook that contains sketches of the body of violence from all angles. Violence perpetrated on groups, on individuals, among enemies, and between friends. The violence of small, bloody cuts and the violence of grand, dripping slashes. Violence perpetrated by uncaring machines. Inflicted lovingly by brothers for reasons both good and bad. It all happens again and again. The plot of Squid Game, that of the consensual abduction of hard-on-their-luck citizens to compete in deadly trials against one another for a large cash reward, see, I did it in 20 words, is a delicate mechanism made to shepherd the audience seamlessly from one scenario into the next without mercy and without boring us, ratcheting up the stakes skillfully, and always, always exploring violence. The violence happens in melodramatic close-ups, naturally, but it also happens in pitiless wide shots, the latter, of course, being a more startling experience that gets to something gets much closer to explaining something systemic. But for all that, dear viewer, we never quite arrive at anything conclusive. We are held back from learning anything, this lack being the hallmark of the modern entertainment industry wherever it thrives. The joy of watching Squid Game is in this sense the same as the Great British Bake Off or Law & Order Special Victims Unit. The exhilaration of watching process unfold competently is incredibly soothing. It's what keeps us coming back and again to numerous cooking channels and endless procedural dramas, police dramas. But in this way, it is mere escapism. It is most pointedly not a true critique of capitalism as it has often been advertised. Why does that matter? Why is it important to correct this misperception other than being obnoxious people who like to do things like that? First of all, look, we do this to spare people some embarrassment. For those who may have only watched a few other Korean motion pictures, such as Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, they may quickly jump to the conclusion that there is this implicitly populist streak running through Korean culture, not realizing that a more thorough look would reveal a grand thematic breadth and topical breadth of filmmaking that is comparable to any North American or Western European filmmaking nation. But more importantly, we offer this correction because for cinema to be useful, as many of us believe it should be, it has to reflect and inject a revolutionary consciousness in the audience. And this is the tricky bit. Hollywood and modern Western cinema is set up to depict scenes of engagement. While what's wrong with our political economy and what's wrong with our political economy and the key to third cinema, as defined by Solanas and Catino, is alienation. Squid Game's creator Hwang Dong-hyuk clearly has some decent politics. The issue of the North Korean defector is handled delicately, though clearly through the lens of a South Korean citizen. Even better is a depiction of a Pakistani immigrant, Ali Abdul, player 199, who is held in unfair labor conditions and is played extremely sympathetically by Tripthai Anupam. But all the empathetic plot points, a mother who needs an operation, a seemingly perfect businessman concealing a crime, the sort of save the orphanage plot points that get our characters exactly where they need to be for idiosyncratic reasons, as much as for systemic ones. For Squid Game to work, this is crucial, because the ugly systemic secret is that the world we actually live in, these deadly games would be way more meritocratic than any life lived under real capitalism. You've got a small but measurable shot at success in the game system. Probably about the same as a startup, starting on the new and exciting journey of figuring out new ways to share photos on the internet. Your percentages are the same, but the truth for most people living on our planet today is that you have zero chance. You were dead before the boat even sank. You would be crazy not to join in these homicidal activities, not because the bottom fell out of your life suddenly, but because you are fully aware that you are never going to be given a chance in the first place. Money is the only thing that makes money. The resourceful, if human, need not apply. To participate in the Squid Games is quite literally the best deal you are going to be offered in your life. Reality is exemplified by a son spending his mother's healthcare money at the racetrack. It's millions dying because the cutoff age for insurance premium reduction is altered by a small 10%. The former is engaging, the latter is alienating, though it holds a bigger body count. To dress up the guards and executioners of the gaming complex in impenetrable opaque spacesuits is the sort of alienation you'd think you'd want, but in order to have an engaging plot, those masks come off an awful lot. The humanity of the apparatus peeks through the cracks and precisely at the wrong times. And all this makes us ask the question, how do you make alienation engaging? True feelings of collective action on screen are rare. The Battle for Algiers, a famous left-wing film, famously concludes with the failure of individual protagonists, but shows us a collective awakening. That's not the end of Squid Game. The best player, we are pretty sure, wins. This is satisfying as a story, but falls short of implicating what ails us, and falls far short of suggesting a cure. Money is the plot point, but money is at best only a symbol of capitalism, glittering heaps of gold, crisp stacks of bills. But through the lens of a culture industry, money is a conglomeration of individual pieces representing a promise, a problem, a moment, a year. Capital is different from money. It is more powerful and it is more devious. It is a wealth that when you grasp it seems to shrink of its own accord, but when it is put in the hands of the rich, it blossoms effortlessly. In the right conditions, hyperinflation being just one, capital can make a mockery of money itself, turning the poor into millionaires without meaningfully changing their material conditions. And maybe the image of currency, the great big piles, is where we come the closest in Squid Game to a critique of capitalism. When the players die, the visible pot of money that hangs in the player's dormitory increases by the share they would have received had they all won. The reduction of these humans to a mere price point is dehumanizing for sure, but it's still, in terms of the gameplay, fair and equitable.
숫자 255명, 참가자 1명.
In the true capitalist version, there would be surplus profit that someone would be entitled to upon your death. The results wouldn't simply be passed on to the other players, they would be partially absorbed by those who own the means of the game and who provide opportunity. You can imagine a speech in which the fees on the winnings are explained. We come close to these moments during Squid Game, but we never quite stick the landing. And as we say in the United States, the only games in which close counts are horseshoes and hand grenades, neither of which are in the 9 activities that these players pursue. Now, do not get me wrong, I liked Squid Game. I liked it a lot. Not since John Woo's Hard Boiled has a vision of the harm people can do to people been so carefully considered. But while Hard Boiled has deep political societal subtexts, Squid Game elects to explore the permutations of conflict in a more personal sphere and makes the political personal in a way that takes the teeth out of a systemic critique. That being said, it was much better than The Queen's Gambit, but that is the story for another time.